Oh, here we go.
Let's record.
Got it. Okay. Recording now. Perfect. Okay, so for those who could join or cannot join, we'll have the recording for them. And we'll get started. So first of all, for whoever's here, thank you very much. It'll be a small crowd, but a good crowd, because we have good people here tonight, this afternoon.
No.
Can everybody hear me okay, or am I going in and out?
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent. So tonight, the reason why we decided to offer this program, also first and foremost for people who either showed interest in the program or know about the program, to give a platform to sort of ask questions and to get more information. And for those who know less about the program, for us to present what this partnership between your congregation and our organization is, what we have to offer, what we're doing, and basically from here, what onward. In the past, we've done this with all sorts of different temples and congregations, and it's usually very helpful because people get to ask questions and sort of engage and understand a little bit more. You know, there's always the same questions that come up again and again, so it's always nice to sort of just get it out there. That would make it super understood. So for this program, we'll keep it kind of short because it is a Sunday and it's your weekend. So I don't want to take too much time, but I'll split it half the time. I'll speak, sort of present what we're doing and what we have to offer. And for the last part, for any of the 3 or 4 of you who have any more questions, then I'll open the floor to you guys. Just out of curiosity, is there anybody here who hasn't joined the program yet or doesn't know about the program? Devorah, Mary, Ricky? You don't know about the program?
Correct. We do not know. We do not know about the program. We're here to.
Excellent.
I mean, we know it exists. We are here to learn about it.
Excellent. So this program is worth it. It's worth our time, and we hope that after this program you'll understand a little bit better. So I'm going to share my screen. That way, it'll be easier for you guys to follow along with me. So I'll just go ahead and do that. Okay, can you guys see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes. Yes.
So right off the bat, I want to say my tree in Israel, we're not just any tree. This is my olive tree in Israel. But before we even get to the olive oil and the olive trees, it's important to know that this organization, we exist for the sole purpose of strengthening the robust bridge between Israel supporters and Israel together. That's why we exist, and this is why we're here. But in order to understand about our program and what tree, what olive tree, why we chose the olive tree, and what this even means, our story starts many, many years ago in the time of the temple. And something that's very, very important to Israel, our culture, our heritage, our traditions, is the land of Israel. And the olive tree is a very, very important part of the state of Israel, the Jewish people, and the land of Israel. So the olive tree is one of the 7 species that grows in the land of Israel. And every year, the Israeli farmers work the land and produce olive oil, and the olive oil is consumed in Israel and all around the world. But the industry today is very different than what it was in the past. In the past, of course, the harvest season would come around this season. The farmers would harvest their trees, send it to the olive mill, right? Produce the olive oil, and they would whatever olive oil they were able to produce, they would sell in the market or use for their families. And of course, the olive oil would last only 1 year, and they would have to wait until the next year, the next harvest, to produce more olive oil and either use it or sell worldwide. Today, the industry is a lot more advanced. We use all sorts of different equipments to harvest the trees. But the industry in Israel is is very robust. It's very large. First of all, there's around 4.5 million olive trees in Israel for industrial use, which produces about 20 million liters of olive oil. The Israeli olive oil is one of the best in the world, winning international awards worldwide. It's part of the very healthy Mediterranean diet. Olive oil is the basis for that. Don't use any other types of oil, the olive oil. The olive tree itself is an important symbol of peace internationally, worldwide, the olive branch. We actually mentioned the olive branch in the Torah portion, not this past week, but the week before with Noah's Ark. So it's also relevant to our times. But the olive tree is something that has a deep connection to the land of Israel. It grows very well. It's an indigenous plant to the land of Israel. And it's enshrined in our Jewish traditions. It was used in the temple for Hanukkah. And that brings us into the picture, my tree in Israel. And as I said before, our sole purpose is to deepen that connection between Israel lovers and Israel together. And the way we do that, we wanted to do so by personalizing, to personalize the connection between people who love Israel, Israel supporters, to Israel, to the land of Israel. And the way that we chose to do that is to connect people directly to Israeli farmers in the land of Israel, not just any farmers, the olive oil farmers. And the way we do so, the personalization is that this farmer that you support, that you connect to, will produce for you a very distinctive and important and beautiful product. Now, when we put an X on the donation, we're not saying that we don't like donations. That's not our message. Tzedakah is a very important part of our culture and our tradition, and I'm sure everybody gives tzedakah. But the reason we put an X on the donation is because we're not asking for a donation. Israel is a strong nation, a prosperous nation. 75 years, Israel is a regional power producing amazing products worldwide. And it is true that sometimes Israeli producers like the farmers have a hard time with different BDS movements who are trying to boycott Israel. And it's true that maybe global warming is making it difficult for the farmers to produce the amounts that they could. But that's not our message. Our message is that we want you to connect to Israel as the success story. And the olive oil symbolizes that perfectly because olive oil is enriched in our culture and our tradition. It's an indigenous to our land, and it's a very healthy product. And the way we do so is connecting you directly to the Israeli farmer who will produce for you this product, your brand of olive oil. So the way it works is that in the beginning of the season, you adopt an olive tree. People adopt trees in the farmer's olive grove. And then throughout the year, the farmer takes care of the tree, cultivates whatever needs to be done. And then once the harvest season arrives, which is just next month, the farmer will take the olives from your tree and produce kosher, extra virgin boutique olive oil. What we do is we take that olive oil and we'll bottle it into 6 personalized bottles of olive oil. We'll send it directly to the congregation after the harvest for you to enjoy around the year. There's all sorts of reasons why people choose our program or why adopting an olive tree fits all these criteria. Meaning on one hand, it's people adopt trees because they have Zionistic aspirations to connect to the land of Israel. They want something tangible in the land. Some people love the Israeli olive oil. Some do it because they want a direct connection to the Israeli farmer. It's an Israeli farmer that is in Israel that you can visit. It's a tree that you can visit. It's a real tree. It's a real farmer. And some people do it because they like the idea of investing in a legacy that keeps on giving for generations to come. A lot of people have all sorts of different ways to adopt a tree, first and foremost for themselves and for their families, because they consume olive oil. They want their private brand of olive oil. Some people do it as a unique and special gift for someone special, for a loved one, for a birthday gift, anniversary gift. And they put a sign on the tree with their loved one's name. They have the names of their people on the bottles. Some people adopt trees in memory of their loved ones. For example, this tree in the photo you can see here was adopted by a man named Harry Ramsey from Florida, who unfortunately lost his wife a year prior and decided to adopt an olive tree as a way to commemorate her name in the land of Israel. We have schools who adopt trees as part of their educational program as a way to connect their students to the land of Israel. Some parents adopt trees for their bar bat mitzvah, for their for their children. And some communities adopt communal trees and use that as a way to connect their members to the land of Israel. This video they want to show you now is a video that we produced last year. And this sort of summarizes from point to point, from when you adopt a tree until you get to enjoy the olive oil. So it's a short video, about 2 minutes long, and this is from the last year's harvest.
לא שומעים, ישי.
לא שומעים? Can you guys not hear the video?
הם אומרים שהם לא שומעים.
לא שומעים. Well, apparently, so if you couldn't hear the video, then I'll explain very briefly. In the video, you saw the harvest of last year and people receiving the olive oil, and basically different testimonials of people that received it. So that was from last year, but this year, which is a lot more important than last year, there are a few important upgrades. First of all, we're very proud to be upgrading our bottle from a glass bottle to a new tin can. And this is very important because, first of all, it preserves the olive oil a lot better, so they can last longer and taste better for a longer period of time. Secondly, in our opinion, the label is a lot more inviting and attractive, and really has your name on the front, which is something that we care about, to ensure that your name is on there and it fits properly. But that's just
It's supposed to be
upgraded and modern way to do it. And what Kobe's holding up is how the prototype of the bottle, how it's going to look like, and how you will receive the bottles after the harvest. Now, at the end of the day, if we have to summarize what's going on here, what we have here is that when you adopt an olive tree through a program, first of all, you're supporting Israel and you're promoting Israel, because at the end of the day, you are buying a blue and white product from Israel. But also, while doing so, you're also supporting your community. I don't know if you're aware of this, but part of the money that you pay to join this program, part of it is actually given back to Congregation Agudat Achim in the form of a fundraiser for them. So that's important to mention. But also, when you adopt a tree, you're directly supporting the Israeli farmer. It's not going through any other sources. And what's nice about this program is that when you adopt a tree in their grove before the harvest, then it gives the farmers financial security, because how it usually works is farmers have to produce whatever they're growing, in this case olive oil, and only after they produce the olive oil, only then they can go and try to sell it. With this format, you pre-buy the olive oil, you're adopting the tree before the harvest. So for instance, this year, our first farmer, all of his trees have been adopted. So all of his olive oil has already been sold, and that alleviates a lot of stress for the farmers who might not be able to sell all of their olive oil, might have to sell at a loss. So the fact that they're going into the harvest after already selling the olive oil is very beneficial for the farmers. On top of that, my tree also pays them over market value to support what they do and support their product, because that's what it's important to us. And it's a new and different way for you to connect to Israel, because you get something in return. Okay, right, you have an olive tree in Israel that you can visit, and people have visited their tree. Even though COVID is still making it difficult to travel, people have come and have visited their tree and have visited their farmer. You have a farmer that cultivates your tree. You're getting kosher, it's extra virgin, it's high quality. And the tree that you adopt, it's not some tree in a forest that you're never going to find. It's a tree that actually yields you something. It's yielding you your own brand of olive oil, and it's sent all the way to your community. Whatever you pay in, it includes the shipping. So you don't have to even pay for shipping. It's sent directly to the community. And it's a nice way for you to deepen your roots in the land of Israel. This is just an example of a couple who came before COVID. They came to visit their tree. A couple from Arkansas, a Christian couple. They got to visit their farmer. They got to visit their tree, get the whole explanation of how it works. They actually came a few weeks before the harvest, so it was very nice for them to see all the olives on their trees. But most importantly, they got to visit their farmer. And after the tour, Mrs. Bishop said that was the highlight of her trip, visiting her olive tree in Israel. And at the end of the day, that's our story. Meaning, we want to create a platform where on the one hand, you're supporting Israel, but on the other hand, you're getting something in return, because Israel has a lot to give and a lot to offer. And we want you to enjoy your investment. And in this case, your investment is in the olive oil farmer, in the olive oil. That's in short what we do and what we have to offer you guys. And what's nice is that this past year, we were able to connect with about 25 different communities from California to New Jersey, New York, and also in the center of the United States, where the congregations and the temples can also enjoy this program one way or the other. And of course, also the members of the congregation, who you guys get to enjoy the olive oil, Israeli olive oil from your tree. So that's us, and that's what we have, that's what we do. And if any of you have any questions, if anything wasn't clear, or if you have any questions about the farmers, about us, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, I have a question. My name is Mary. Can
Yes.
you expand on the harvesting period and when do you when do you adopt a tree, and how long does the harvest period last? I saw some pictures there, and I assume that the tarp is to collect I forgot the name. Anyway, can you explain a little bit more about the harvesting aspect of it?
Yes, so the harvest is usually the same once a year, the same time every year in Israel, which is around November. So the way it works is that you would adopt your tree throughout the year, January, February, March, April, up until the harvest. And then once the harvest begins, we close our lists. We have to update the farmers how many trees have been adopted, and he has to organize himself. And then during the months of November, that's when the harvest is. And then once the harvest occurs, it takes us some time also to bottle and to ship everything out. So by December, usually by December, January, you'll already receive your olive oil. And once you receive your olive oil, then if you enjoyed your olive oil and you're satisfied with your tree,
The idea.
and of course with the idea, obviously, then you are more than welcome to readopt your tree for an additional season. And then the same thing, come November, the farmer will harvest your tree and you'll receive the olive oil from your tree.
Thank you.
Yes, Ricky.
Josh, you know what my question is going to be, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm one of 6 children.
Okay.
All right. And I thought this would be a perfect gift that each of us got a bottle of olive oil. The problem is I live in New York. One brother lives in Texas. One sister lives in Pennsylvania. One sister lives in Maryland. You know, so there are people who are not local. And I did ask Josh if it's possible to ship to different locations, and he said no, everything would come to Agadarachim. So my question is, if I now need to ship everything to individual family members, you know, for me, that's, I would imagine, I don't know what the cost is to do that. So that's the thing that holds me back, is that I now need to pay for the shipping for, you know, 3 to 4 people on top of, you know, coming back from Israel to here. So is there any way, you know, what's the best way for me to address that? And these are not people that I normally see.
Mhm.
We don't get together very frequently.
It's a good question. And obviously we have people like you who would like to send a bottle to different people who aren't local and live far away. Currently, the formats that we have available is 6 bottles, which are shipped to one location, or 3 bottles, which are shipped to one location. We don't have the ability to take individual bottles out of the package of 6 and to ship to different locations. I mean, theoretically, we could do it. It's just not worthwhile, not for us and not for you. If I understand correctly, and you want to send 1 bottle per location, then currently we don't have a solution for that. The best we can do is in packs of 3. That's the best we can do currently. We had in the past the option to do 2 bottles, 2 and 2, but the shipping just takes up so much of the cost that it's too bad.
Yeah,
Why does FedEx have to make all this money? It's not.
So that's the only thing that holds me back, is I
Mhm.
love the idea of getting 6 bottles because there are 6 of us.
Right.
But the fact that, again, I don't see my family members on a regular basis,
Right.
you know, and I don't know what the weight is on the bottles. So what shipping charges I might incur afterwards to ship to the individual siblings.
Right. Good question.
Ricky, if I could clarify that, when they arrive at the synagogue, we can make arrangements that when they arrive at the synagogue office, we'll, you know, package them in individual boxes, and then we can ship them from our building. So it wouldn't, when you had asked me if they could be shipped directly from my tree in Israel, that answer is no, as you
Oh,
said.
no, okay.
So if you had ordered a box of 6, when it arrives at our synagogue, you would get the 1, and then the others we would arrange in packages, and I could bring them to the post office for you. They're probably less than $10 to ship from our building.
Each one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, well, obviously when we go to Neil, you know, my brother's local as well, but the others, you know,
So we could ship you.
I mean, well, that, so you'd be shipping it like ground or I mean, like Eric's in Texas, you know, and it's a liquid, so I don't know from a liquid perspective. And I imagine the fact that it's in a tin bottle now, you're saying, versus a glass bottle would definitely help as far as the breakable aspect of it.
That is
I
true.
thought that maybe you
right.
and I can talk about that some more.
We'll pack it
It's like-
safely for shipping.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I really do like that idea. And I
Once-
know that my siblings would also appreciate that.
Right.
Can you expand on the cost of the bottle? If I adopt a tree, how many tin cans of oil would I get after the harvest? And basically the harvest is about a month. Is that what you said, right? It starts in November and it would be shipped in December.
Correct. So for every tree that you adopt, what that means is that you have the tree for the season, and then after the harvest, which is November, we ship to you 6 bottles. So every tree produces on average 125 ounces, 4.5 liters, which is why that's what we ship to you in the form of 6 bottles. Each bottle would be about 25 ounces. Okay, and the cost, of course, includes the shipping and the label and pretty much any other expense you would need, I guess. Currently, the congregation is charging $250 US. That's for the annual tree, and then for a package of 3, we also have a package of 3 option. That's $160 US. Yes, and that includes, I think, of course, part of the money stays at Congregation of Gudat Achim. Part of the money, of course, goes to the shipping. But that's what you would pay, and you wouldn't have to add anything else.
So I'm sorry, oops, let me just clarify. $250 to adopt a tree,
Yes,
and you get 3 or 6 cans of oil.
6. You get 6 cans for the 250.
Okay, and then you mentioned the 160 there.
Oh,
didn't
so
understand
what I said is that there's another option. If you don't want to adopt an entire tree, we have the option to purchase a trio, basically a package of 3 bottles instead of the 6. And that the cost for that is $160 US. And of course, it includes the shipping and everything
I see.
else, but it's 3 bottles.
I see. Thank you.
Mary, for more information on the ordering process, I'm putting the link in our chat box. mytree.org.il/congregation-agudat-achim.
Okay, thanks.
And Yishai, yes,
Yes.
Yishai.
Yeah,
So if we were to adopt a tree now, would that be for this November's harvest?
yes. So you have the option to, if you want to receive this year's harvest olive oil, then you have the option to adopt until the end of the month because the harvest is in November.
And the oil gets shipped out in December.
So last year we were able to get it out in early December. Of course, it has a lot to do with when exactly the trees are harvested, how quickly we're able to package, and then how quickly FedEx can distribute. But we estimate that sometime during December, you'll receive your olive oil.
Okay.
Hi, a couple of quick questions.
Yes,
How you doing? So I assume if you do it now, when you were planning a visit to Israel and you wanted to see a tree, you wouldn't be able to see it because your lease expires in December or whatever. So not that we necessarily coming to Israel right now. The other thing, are you not for profit? And are the checks made out to the synagogue or to you guys?
2 very good questions. The first question, if you adopt a tree, the minute you get your olive oil, we give you the option to readopt your tree. But we're not going to say, no, you have to readopt if you want to visit your tree. You could come during the year and visit your tree. We'll be more than happy to welcome you and host you. More than welcome to. Of course, once you receive the olive oil, then you have the option to readopt. But for the course of the year, you're more than welcome to come and visit your tree. Are we a for nonprofit organization? No. At the end of the day, you are receiving a product from us. We cannot be a nonprofit. And as I mentioned earlier, we're not collecting donations for the farmers, but more we are that, I don't want to use the word platform because we're not a platform connecting you to farmers, but our goal is to personalize your connection to the farmer. Okay, when you purchase the olive oil from him, it's not about the olive oil that you purchased from him, but your way of connecting to the land of Israel. But we don't want you to donate to the farmer, right? You're receiving a product from him. He's working your tree, and he's whatever he makes from the tree, he's sending to you. So you are purchasing a product. So it is a business model at the end of the day. But when you write the check out to Congregation Agudat Achim, then part of it is tax deductible because part of it is staying at Agudat Achim.
What stays?
You know
in it?
what part?
Oh, I see, the small
Josh?
I don't have it right in front of me, but I have that information available.
Okay.
I don't recall. I have it secure in the office.
What is the value? What is the size of each? How many ounces in each, or liters in each?
25.
So it's 25 ounces per bottle. That's 750 milliliters. It's the average size of a bottle, pretty standard size.
A water bottle is 500 milliliters. Think about
Yeah. Here, I think
One-
Kobe has
half
a real
percent
bottle.
This
with him.
is the bottle.
water bottle. That's the bottle.
That's 25 ounces?
25
Yeah.
ounces, yes.
With your name here.
It keeps sunlight out and it keeps the oil fresher.
So we're
Right,
paying
because
about
of
$4
sunlight.
a bottle,
More than that.
more than that. But that's not what it's about necessarily.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's the point.
That's
Right.
your return on your investment in this farm in Israel.
Right.
Exactly. And,
Where is
as
the
I mentioned
farm and
before,
how many farms participate? Where is the farm?
so we have one farmer. First of all of our farmers are currently in the Northern District of Israel, but as a policy, they will all be within the green lines of this official state of Israel to stay away from any
Political issues.
political situation because we understand the politics around it. And I did mention this, but what's really nice about this program is that we have a large amount of Reform congregations and religious congregations and Christians and evangelicals and traditional, and just from the entire spectrum of people who feel comfortable enough to be a part of this program because we try to keep it as apolitical as possible. So all of our farmers are within the state of Israel. We have one farmer in the Northern District in a place called Ein Iron. It's a moshav near Pardes Chana. It's in the Northern District of Israel. We have another olive oil farmer, our larger one and our newest addition. He's in the Jezreel Valley. He has about 14,000 trees. So it's going to take us some time to have all of his trees adopted before we move on to the next farmer. But that's where currently both of our farmers are located.
Do you have Jewish and Arab farmers or just Jewish or?
We have two farmers. One is an Israeli. His father is American. His father made Aliyah during the founding of the state of Israel, but he's born and raised in Israel. It's actually interesting that his father's illustration is on the bottle that you'll receive. He's on the bottle, you can see the picture of the farmer. So that's the father of the farmer. He was our first farmer. And the second farmer, he's a Mizrahi Jew. So not Arab, but closer, I guess. But we only have two farmers. Where we'll be in a few more years, who knows? But that's where we are currently.
Are there different, and this may be a dumb question, but just as in wine, you get different grapes. Are there different varieties or olives that are considered better than others? And this is unrelated to the whole project in a bad way, but do they rate the olives? Are there olive tasting things that go on where they decide whose olives are better?
You have no idea. It's unbelievable. It's an entire industry. As I mentioned before, Israeli olive oils won 139 international awards in 2020, meaning there's actually awards and ceremonies, and they test olive oils. It's a whole big thing. So yes, the variety does matter, and how it's produced, and the water that is used, and where it's grown, and the climate, and when it's harvested. Just like any industry, it's a whole thing. The type of olives that you'll be receiving from your farmer is a variety called Barnea. That's the most common type in Israel. It grows the best in our type of climate and produces the best type of olive oil. So Barnea, that's the name of the variety.
Do you provide any information on that as part of it? Is there any educational information about olives and olive oil? along
There
with
is
the package?
on our website, we have a whole section about the olive oil. It's not super developed, but as time goes by, we'll develop it as.
Yeah, we
as
discovered
we'll
this
develop.
on trips to Napa,
Napa Valley.
where I expected to see wine tasting. I did not expect to see olive oil tastings all over the place.
We did.
And
Yeah.
it was kind of, we got into it. I found it very interesting. And in our, you probably know up here, these little olive oil boutique stores have opened up all over the place in the US. We have Saratoga olive oil, and I don't know where they're getting it from, but it's kind of an interesting business.
Josh, what
Right.
kind of traction has the program gotten at the synagogue? How
We've
many
had
people?
several orders. I think 5 or 6 families at this point have put in an order. We weren't sure when we announced it at our annual meeting back in May exactly how many we would get, but hopefully with more information and more time that we're spreading this information through our congregation, that they'll grow from this year, and we'll have some for next year as well. And continuing to support them in their effort developing these farms in Israel.
And how much does the synagogue get for each?
You know,
Oh, you don't know, I'm sorry.
I have that information.
Ballpark idea?
Yishai, was it $40 or $50 on the order? Something like that.
I think it's about 20%, something like that.
20%.
A quick question on the oil. Is it extra virgin oil?
Of
Yeah.
course,
Okay.
wouldn't give you anything less than that, and it's kosher.
Kosher,
And it's
that's-
kosher.
Extra virgin cold pressed.
Sure.
The olive oil is good. It is good.
all right, so let's do it. We'll see. How do you do a label?
You talk to Josh.
You talk, Josh, you do labels?
I don't. It's all done by you know
No, but
what's
we
in-
order through you. We order through the
They don't
synagogue.
So we do the
come-
label,
print the
but you
labels and
choose
paste them
basically the
together.
name on the label.
This is
So
the
what we do,
label.
we print, right, so that's how we print the label, and where it says the Hunt family olive oil, you basically choose what name you want to be printed over there.
You get
And
one
then in
name.
our process,
my screen, but if you go to the link that's in the chat, if you select one of the 2 options, either the 3 bottles or the 6 bottles, you'll see there's also an option when you choose, you can purchase this set as a gift to give out to others, for yourself and your family, in memory of a loved one or in honor of a B'nai Mitzvah. You also have the option to have a sign attached by, I believe it's a chain that doesn't damage the tree. There's either a wooden or a golden aluminum sign for an
Right.
additional donation, where the actual tree that you adopt will have your name on it. So when you do go and visit, you'll know exactly which is the tree that you got that olive oil from.
Wait until we visit.
And if
And you
our
get
tree
the
has a bad
certificate.
year, I assume they'll give us olives from someone else's tree.
They'll put your sign on a better tree, I'm sure.
Yeah, are you saying, did you
The
say
whole
that,
farm is fantastic. the way it's handled.
did you say that one tree produces the amount of olive oil we're getting? 6
yes,
bottles?
so your variety, the Barnea, produces on average, our trees that we're using, the farm that's dedicated to Agudat Achim, that is basically up for grabs for Agudat Achim. The trees there are around 10 years old, and it's the Barnea variety, which produces about 4.5 liters. So that's why we say you're going to get 4.5 liters, 6 bottles. Now, of course, every tree, it's a little bit different, but that's what the farmer's committed to producing for each one. And I mean, obviously, we don't pick the olives from your tree and take it to the press and produce olive oil just out of that olive oil, but it's from that grove. And that grove can have several trees, but that way it's always averaged out. and you'll definitely get 4.5 liters. For instance, this year was a very bad year because of climate change, and it was a very warm year. So the trees didn't produce as much olives. So he ended up, we had basically, if the olive grove had 200 trees, then only 150 were adopted. And the other 50 were supplements.
Josh, everybody will get this certification in the box.
Okay,
Yes, everybody will
and
also get a certificate.
what, how many trees in the whole orchard, you said?
So every orchard, we have several orchards. Some of them have 150, some have 200, a couple smaller ones. That's around the size, between 100 and 200 trees. We have another farmer that we just added on. He planted about 14,000 trees in his, but they're still not mature. They have a year or two until they start producing.
Olive trees last a very long time, so you're not getting them from 100-year-old trees here.
You're not. For agriculture, for production, they don't let the trees grow too old. They switch them. Because once they get too old, they don't produce as good of olive oil or not the same amount, and they don't keep them for a while. Yeah.
What is your competition in terms of this industry? Since you are not a non-for-profit, what is your competition?
For profit.
So, for profit. So
For
our
profit, that's what I mean.
competition, I'll put it this way, we have people who offer to adopt a grapevine. We were aware of that program. I think the men's club is associated with that, where you adopt a grapevine and after 7 years, you get a bottle. But they charge about $300 to $360 for one grapevine, and you get one bottle after 7 years. I've seen recently a program where you can adopt a cow in Israel for $1,000, and you don't get anything in return. JNF, of course, which is very popular, you can plant trees, but we're not associated with JNF, and we don't plant trees. You have trees that produce for you olive oil. This isn't planting trees. You
It's a
could,
very new and unique program, so we don't have any competition.
there's no direct
right now.
competition currently.
It's our idea. It's our.
Yeah, my question was specifically competition in terms of olive oil, and you are the only ones, basically.
We don't think that we sell olive oil. We sell the idea. We sell the connection to Israel in a very unique way, and this program yields you 6 bottles of olive oil, but the connection to Israel, the deepen your roots in the land of Israel. This is the important, to support directly to the farmer and visit him. This is the idea. Promote Israeli farmer while support your community. It's a great idea. Think about it.
No, it is a great idea. It is.
Thank you.
So I'm going to ask one more question. These farmers are they struggling farmers, or are they? I mean, what's their? They in need of support, and the other part is what percentage does the farmer get as opposed to you guys, the for-profit organization? I would like to think that the farmers are benefiting. You said like you're paying them higher than market value, but do you have a breakdown, if you could share on the percentage on how the funds flow? That's the MBA in me asking an MBA question.
Kobe, you want to answer that, or should I answer? I'll answer. Okay, first of all, when it comes to, so the second part of your question is how much goes to the farmer and so on and so forth. So the farmer, we pay the farmer over 30% market value for the olive oil. Meaning if the farmer has to sell the olive oil and he only gets money from the oil, the farmer has to, when he sells the oil, he sells it already bottled with a cap and a label and so forth. We pay him 30% over that just for the oil, which means that they're making more. And that's not because they're struggling, okay? There's two sides to this. On the one hand, the farmers, every farmer has his struggles, and it's a very competitive industry, and especially in Israel, which is experiencing 3 main struggles. The first is that Israel is importing a lot of olive oil from Spain and Italy, which is making the market very, very hard for the Israeli olive oil farmers. It's actually pretty sad. There's farmers who for generations have been growing olive trees, but they had to uproot their trees because it just wasn't profitable enough for them. On the other hand, of course, there's the BDS movements who make it hard for them to sell internationally, especially in Europe. And the third is climate change, which makes everything a lot more difficult for the farmers. But at the end of the day, we're not here because the farmers need charity, because they will succeed to sell if they need to. They will be able to, and they will survive. But we're here because after 75 years that Israel exists, Israel is now a strong nation, a powerful nation. And most of all, I don't know if it's all things, but a very, very, very large portion of Israel's existence and success is because of such a strong, supportive community, mainly in the United States, also in Europe and Canada, but predominantly the United States, very strong lobby in Washington, very, very strong Jewish community who fights for Israel on all spheres, politically, the UN, production, high tech. I mean, Israel enjoys the support either in the form of a donation or investment. But at the end of the day, we're producing something in return. It's not give us money, we're poor, but give us money, let us give you something amazing in return. So that's basically the motto. We want you to enjoy Israel's success story, to reap the fruits of many years of investments that the Jewish community has been giving endlessly to the Israeli nation, to the state of Israel, in the form of aid, in the form of anything. But now it's also, you deserve to get something in return, and not just anything, but good olive oil, a good product, and with extra meaning. It's not just
So
olive oil, right?
I'm going to ask you the maybe tough question getting back. So you pay 30% above the costs of the production. No,
Right.
it's fair. But what is the average cost of production?
Gary, enough.
It's a fair question.
So if you break it down to the different costs of the production, the logistics, and the shipping, to give you the exact percentages of how much goes to the oil, how much to the bottling and packaging, how much to the shipping, how much to the congregation, it ends up being pretty much the cost it would be for you to buy olive oil from Israel and ship it over from Israel to America. Right? If you were to buy olive oil from Israel, 6 bottles, and ship it over to your house, 6 bottles, it wouldn't be far from the $200 you pay now, plus the 20% that goes back to the community. What we give in return, of course, is the private label, and you're getting good olive oil, and it's directly from your farm. It's right after the harvest. It's not in a warehouse. There's not all this marketing going on and commercials and whatever. So it's pretty direct. To give you the exact details, that Kobe would have to give you the exact numbers. I don't think we could present the exact percentages. We could obviously calculate it. But if you do the calculation, then 6 bottles shipped to the United States. That's about the price.
How long would a bottle be expected to last? Not just in terms of the usage, but if you were not to use it for a period of time, how long would it last?
So typically it'll taste good for about a year. Okay. But since we give you filtered olive oil, so it will last past that date if it's stored properly, meaning out of sunlight and in a cold, dry area. I was in the United States a few weeks ago visiting my grandparents in New Jersey, and they opened up a bottle from 2 years ago. And there was sediment in the bottom because it was unfiltered olive oil, but it tasted okay. But we recommend up to a year. That's also what the industry recommends. Yes.
When can we reasonably expect for the bottles to arrive to Agudat Achim, if you know?
So we commit to the first quarter of the following year, but last year we were able to get it to the United States in mid-December, and that's what we project we'll be able to do this year, somewhere around December.
Does it go through the East Coast or the West Coast?
It's the East Coast.
So it's probably gonna we're using FedEx as our carrier. And they usually, the way it works, they send all of our packages to Germany. They have a huge facility there. And then from Germany, they spread out to different areas in the United States. So I'm guessing yours will land in JFK.
Last year, it took 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah, 3 or 4 days for shipping. Yeah, they're pretty
But I'm
quick.
just saying, because there's so much issue right now with container ships on the West Coast.
Oh, we're doing
And-
airline. We're not doing cargo. No,
Okay,
it's going to be airlifted to you.
okay. I mean, it's a legitimate question.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's a reasonable question. That's
Yeah.
also part of the cost. Remember, it's going to be 3 or 4 day premier shipping. I mean, we want your oil to last for as long as possible. And we understand that people don't consume 6 bottles of olive oil within a couple months. It'll probably last you the entire year. So we want you to receive it as quickly as possible and enjoy it throughout the year.
And I'll speak with Hillary and Rabbi Spitzer to see if the synagogue will adopt a tree on our own so that we'll have our own label on it. So if you want to come by and try it, you can consider adopting your own tree next year.
It's a good idea.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you. We're
Very
gonna
good.
sign off.
Yeah, we'll be
Thank you.
doing it, Josh. We'll see us. All
All
right.
right.
It sounds like we've
Thank
got to
you.
get this in soon
I'm gonna ask you
to,
not to send a check to the synagogue. You can go right to that.
No,
page.
I wrote down the website. Thank you. Okay.
no.
Josh, does Neil see what comes in?
He should,
I mean,
yes.
He would.
He may not have it readily available. I'll have to get him that information. But
No,
that's
no, no,
available.
no. If
No,
I
no,
want,
she wants to
I-
surprise Neil, Josh.
yeah,
Oh.
exactly. I
No,
didn't like-
Neil will only see the final amount that will come in through either our general fund or through Ways and Means.
But
He
he would know what,
He won't have to know that you bought him
won't
an
know.
individual.
Neil is only going to see the final amount that we receive as our.
okay, so he wouldn't see a breakdown with my name on it.
Well,
no.
Okay, yeah, Deborah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And when the bottles come in, make sure Neil doesn't look at
Exactly,
them
the
because she
devil
doesn't
cannot
want them to see a
but
My
Shapiro
brother,
bottle.
my brother's the treasurer of the synagogue,
The
so
money was
everything
okay.
passes his purview.
good. But he won't see that.
Okay.
He'll be surprised when you deliver it to him.
Okay,
Tell them
One
you-
last final note that's
Unless he
important.
sees
Kosher.
When it comes to the label on your bottles, so because we're printing your name on the bottle, we're limited to the amount of characters that can go into the bottle.
We-
So when you do choose the name,
There
we
is
can print, as you
two
can
lines.
see, in the example, we can print up to 2 lines. Okay, and each line can have up to 16 characters. So just when you consider the name you want to put on the bottle, just remember that we're limited to the amount of space we can fit your name. So try not to tell a whole story in the label. Just a name or something in that area.
It's hard when your name is Cooper Ginsburg.
Your name will
You want to
fit.
hear a
Your
funny,
name will
you want to
definitely
hear a
fit.
funny olive oil story? We have a kind of a cute olive oil story
So we-
for you. Deborah will tell it.
We were in Croatia a couple of years ago on a bike trip, but before COVID, I think it was 2019. And we stopped at an oil press, and it was an old world oil press from generations. And Gary, what did you notice? It was something Jewish. It was a menorah he noticed on the shelf. The guy looks at it, he says, "Are you Jewish?" Yeah. So the 4 of us, he took us up into the house part where he lived. Odd rabbi, a several-hour car ride in Croatia, wanted. He didn't use the word hashkachel, and he wound up taking lessons from him, and he's very honest to goodness. This man looks like a very close friend of mine who's an Israeli. And I think that somewhere along the way, this olive press guy who was so taken with Jews is Jewish and doesn't know it. But it was quite a thing. Yeah, olive oil was good too. So.
They were pulling you in to make minion.
right.
Right.
It was very weird, in the middle of nowhere, to have this guy give us all this information.
Yeah, about, whatever. That's our story.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
attending. And
you.
first of all, I have to say thank you to Josh for all of your efforts in marketing and making sure that people know about this and the website and everything needs to be done. So of course, Josh does a tremendous job. And, whoever decides to adopt a tree, that'll be great. And hopefully, even if you don't decide to adopt your tree, you'll see your friend who did adopt a tree and receive their olive oil. And maybe that'll be a nice convincing way to maybe adopt your tree next year. But we hope to see everybody with us this coming year. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And to those who are watching the recording through our website, through our YouTube channel, reach out to me anytime if you have any questions.
Will do.
And sorry about some of my questions if they were too personal, but
Yes, good questions.
we're sensitive to the food chain and how the farmers make out relative to the middle peoples along these routes. That's something I think is
That's why we're here. We wanted
Yeah,
to
you're
have
right.
this discussion. Very realistic questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Jim.
It's unbelievable how much usually the middleman takes this much out of when the farmer barely gets by, which is why, as I mentioned before, it's important that no matter what the market is, we're going to pay them higher, and they're not going to. But more importantly, when people adopt the trees, they're pre-selling their olive oil, so you don't have to wait to the harvest to try to sell their olive oil and compete against everybody else. The harvest comes and everything's sold, and it's a game changer for the farmers. They enjoy it, which is why we have farmers. Just this past year, we had 3 or 4 who tried to join our program. We need adopters, so the farmers enjoy it, and it's important to them. There is something good. in
I
this.
assume that the website will give me a limitation on the number of letters I can use to name our tree or
yeah.
put on the label. Yeah, okay.
It probably will,
enough.
yes.
I just
Okay.
keep thinking, not that I'm going to have a label, but I keep thinking back to growing up in Hebrew school with Karen Ami. And people wanting to go to Israel to find the tree that they're $30 or their $3 purchased in Israel. Do you
Mhm.
remember that? Did you guys have that? Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
it's stamps every week, for Karen Ami.
Right. And by the
Yeah,
way,
so
after
anyway,
you
that's
adopt
what-
your tree, we send you the exact coordinates of the tree, meaning you can go there in the middle of the night without us knowing, and you'll find your tree. It'll be there. So it's a real tree.
That's probably not going to happen, but thank you.
You just
For
may have to go to Israel to see our
for
tree.
those who ask good
Someone-
questions.
Well, I think we're planning a trip with the shul, right?
Maybe,
So we'll
maybe,
probably will
yeah.
visit the vineyard. Okay, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye all.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you
nice
very
weekend.
much.
Bye.